stuck between not voting or voting for Biden. And I kind of been flip-flopping, but I voted for Trump in the primaries. And then after watching the first debate, I really set my mind on voting for Biden instead. Like, it was just such a shit show, and I know a lot of people can agree with that just the immaturity, I mean, on both sides, but specifically...
All three sides, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, Wallace didn't help, but yeah, so I think personally, I hope Biden would win, but
Okay.
I see myself more as a Republican or right-leaning. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay. And so would you say on a scale of like 1 to 100, where are you on wanting Biden to win? Like 100 being like all in Biden.
I'd say more like 75, because personally I have problems with some of the Democratic views, but I do think they would put better people in certain positions. Like the Supreme Court nominee, I don't think Trump should have a say, or the Republicans should have a say in Amy Coney Barrett being a nominee, given that they didn't let Obama nominate Merrick Garland when he was in office. So I see a lot of hypocrisy there.
Do you think there's hypocrisy to go around?
Oh, for sure. Like, no side is blameless there. And it's really what caused a lot of issues. Like, I think a lot of Americans can agree that, these career politicians have really shit on what it means to be a politician in America.
I think that's true. With regard to the hypocrisy, I know that, like, for example, Obama and Pelosi are both on record saying when it was opportune for them that someone should nominate a Supreme Court justice right away. And also I know that when they had power in the Senate, they voted from the previous system where it was a 3/5 majority to a 50-50
Yeah, simple majority.
Yeah, and it seems like they are now backtracking on that, or wishing they hadn't done that.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I think whoever's in office should have a right to put up a nominee. But given that they did block Obama's nominee back in 2016, and just like the stark hypocrisy from McConnell and Lindsey Graham, it just, like, that's pretty messed up. And
What?
the fact,
Sorry, go ahead, continue.
just the fact that a Supreme Court decision might be the outcome of the election.
Right.
If Trump does decide to fight the results, I don't think having a few-day-old justice be one of the deciding factors is...
How, with only 8 people on the Supreme Court, it's entirely possible they wouldn't be able to decide. And do you see that as a problem, not having a 9th odd number on there?
I mean, that could be an issue, but I think you run into bigger issues when you have, like, this president's nominee being brand new. She sounds like a great candidate, but there's going to be a lot of bias that she would vote in Trump's favor if she is in the bench.
People were really very concerned with Kavanaugh and, being sort of just a puppet spokesman for, Trump and Republicans, but he has shown, I think, that he hasn't been. He's decided in ways that were surprising to Republicans and maybe disappointing.
Yeah.
What makes you think that Coney Barrett would be different?
Well, actually, I agree with you there. Like, that whole witch hunt between Kavanaugh and, like, even Gorsuch at points, a lot of people just look at their past records and assume that that's going to be the way that they're going to vote in the future. And if you listen to some of Barrett's, when she was going to be a federal judge, like, you could tell she didn't want to be biased. She wasn't going to bring religion into it. She wasn't going to push any of her beliefs. But I still think she will have some, she'll want to support Trump a little bit more if she is brand new in the bench there. So
And also, my understanding is that she was, the 3 years that she's been on the circuit, she was also appointed by Trump, and so maybe that is influential too. But say the hypocrisy issue is big for you in swaying you to Biden, yet you acknowledge that there's plenty of hypocrisy to go around. I think earlier you said that, also Trump's performance in the debate was a big swaying factor for you.
Yeah.
And what about his debate performance was, not in line with, some of the ways he has behaved in the past. Like, for example, in his, 2016 campaign, he seemed very bombastic. And also, when I watch him in his rallies and whatnot, it seemed to me very much like he did not switch from rally mode to debate mode. And, my point is that it seems like in keeping with his character in the debate performance in general.
Yeah, I did think about that too. I think a big thing about rallies is that politician is trying to not so much persuade outside voters, but to appeal to their crowd. So they're going to say more extreme things, more in line with that group. So those rallies, when he's saying more controversial things, that's not surprising, but the way he acted in the debate it didn't appeal to undecided voters or any of the left wing. Personally, I thought it was disrespectful in some of the things he was saying, specifically in regards to Hunter and Beau. That really got to me there, and then just wasn't bringing up a lot of valid points. Neither were, but his were a little more immature in nature.
And I remember Biden, called him stupid, told him to shut up.
Yeah.
Which seemed much more of a departure in terms of previous character for Biden than it did for Trump in terms of the interrupting and whatnot. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if you, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said prior to that you were more leaning towards Trump, but it was something about the debate performance that swayed you to not just being slightly in favor of Biden, but decidedly in favor of Biden.
I was more middle ground, not wanting to vote or voting for
right.
Biden begrudgingly.
That's right.
But it was just I think Biden, telling him to shut up and calling him a clown was the least he could do. Coming after his dead son and his other son's drug addiction, that has no merit on debate stage. It has nothing to do with any American. Hunter Biden having a drug addiction doesn't affect you and me. So I just thought, bringing that up it was kind of gross.
Do you think that there was any merit to bringing up Hunter Biden in the context of corruption?
Same thing with the hypocrisy. You could find a lot of Republicans high up, in the cabinet area. Didn't Jared Kushner have something with that?
There's certainly nepotism there.
Yeah, I think Trump brings up a lot of stuff that can come back at him too. So I don't understand how that needed to be brought up.
There's the issue with Biden of him sort of not being able to, the likelihood of him not being able to complete 4 years, much less 8 years, and someone like Kamala Harris becoming the functional, if not the actual president, and she was, one of the first people amongst a pool of 20 plus people eliminated in the primaries. Does that have any impact on your decision making?
I have heard a lot about her past voting history and how it doesn't really align with Democrats, but I think if Biden were to win, he wouldn't run again in 4 years, just based on, both of them have such poor mental acuity that kind of laughable for either side.
Are you talking about Trump and
Trump
Biden,
and
or
Biden.
Kamala and
Trump and Biden.
Trump, yeah.
So, I mean, for either side to come after their ability to serve out another 4 years just doesn't really make sense to me. But, I mean, I think she's a strong candidate, even though she didn't lose. She's smart, and, like, her voting history does flip-flop, but I don't think she would do anything to try and damage our country.
Okay.
Okay. They both, or Biden, Harris, Trump, Pence, they seem to have very different visions for the country and where it should go. Biden is, he's been in government for nearly 5 decades. Trump, is kind of, even though he's a Republican now, he's very much an outsider. You have Republicans, establishment Republicans who can't stand him and side with Democrats against him. What is there an appeal for you in going back to a status quo with Biden, where Trump rails against selling out jobs to China, outsourcing manufacturing, these constant wars that we keep getting into? I mean, Trump hasn't started any more wars. Do any of those issues kind of concern you about electing an establishment figure like Biden?
I mean, yeah, I could see why that would be a cause for concern, but a lot of people quote Trump's, booming economy, great job growth. Like, a lot of that was inherited from the Obama administration. Like, he inherited a recession, and then he caused the economy to grow and jobs to grow. So I don't think, giving Trump that, achievement that he did that is fair.
Well, I'm not necessarily trying to give him, I'm not saying that, I don't think that was really my question, to attribute those achievements to him, but rather to say that, he represents even if it's just on a small scale, a sort of fracture of the establishment monopoly on our political system. And,
Are you talking more about, like, career politicians?
That's right,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, like, career politicians have caused a big issue in politics. But I think that also comes with, he knows a lot more people on the Hill, and he just kind of has a better sense of how to do it. Not that he's always done a great job, but I think he has more knowledge to what the office means, given he was vice president for 8 years as well. So.
Okay. Well, let's see. I usually like to keep the interviews around 15 minutes, and we're right about there. Are there any other, maybe just to wrap up, is there a predominant other issue that you might want to talk about that leads you to Biden, or even something else off the list, maybe? See you eyeing it there.
I'd say probably the COVID response was poor, big time. I mean, a lot of it was on states too, but I don't think denying it and downplaying it helped the situation at all. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's that is an issue that is, really hard to pin down. I think, it's unprecedented in anybody's living memory. From what when I look at the examples of responses from Democrats, and in general, it's hard. Biden was not in a position to do anything about any of that issues,
Yeah.
so hard to know where he was. But I remember Trump trying to shut down travel from Europe and China in January, and being called a racist and a xenophobe for it. not to say that that would have solved the problem or anything, but then, going into, a month and a half, 2 months later, late February, early March, you had the Speaker Pelosi in Chinatown saying, everything's fine, come on down to Chinatown. And de Blasio in New York saying the same thing.
That.
And so when I look at that situation, it's obviously Trump is the man in charge. So, and they're the most examples of him. But it doesn't seem as though the Democrats would have had a response that, Biden, I think, claimed that if he was there, nobody would have died in the debates, which I think is also ludicrous, right? And then that's just as much posturing as Trump's downplaying the whole thing.
I think Trump was the only one that was in that situation. Anybody else can say, "Oh, I would have stopped it."
Right.
It's bullshit. You weren't in the position to stop it. So, but yeah, once again, hypocrisy. Pelosi getting her hair done without a mask. The reporters and other top politicians not wearing masks and stuff. But as president, he should have had the leadership ability to advocate for masks and social distancing, and then not pushing for us to reopen as quickly, because the 2-week quarantine in April.
That's a states thing, though, right?
Yeah, but he could have pushed for that a little harder than saying and then coming after Biden for for wearing a mask during the debate.
Right.
Seemed kind of ironic.
And then getting COVID.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like Democrats or Republicans, they both fucking suck personally. They need to get their shit together.
Do you think we'd benefit from a third party? Do you know who Brett Weinstein is?
I've heard of him.
I only bring him up because he had a proposal for a different option, slightly even different than a third party. But there've been a segment of the American population that's been trying to get third party access, whether it's the Green Party, Libertarians, whatnot, for decades now, and the establishment, Biden, mostly because Trump hasn't been involved, they have systematically gone about trying to eliminate that third party option.
Yeah. With the third party though, you really can't just introduce it. You have to reform the whole system. You would have to get rid of the Electoral College, because if you have a viable third party candidate, the likelihood that a top candidate would reach 270 goes way down, and then you have nobody getting 270, and then that just goes to the Senate.
Do you see eliminating the Electoral College as a problem?
There needs to be something that allows those flyover states to get better representation, but at the same time, Hillary winning the popular vote by 3 million votes, that's not a silent majority if you lose by 3 million.
I know that, not so much Biden, but I think he did, but he's not super strong on it, I don't think. But there is a big move amongst Democrats, and Kamala Harris included, to just get rid of the Electoral College, pack the courts. There was another one too that's a big, dramatic changes from the way we've done things. Does that concern you?
Yeah, I don't think we should scrap the whole thing, but there definitely needs to be changes that allow for each American's voice to be heard, and then not have California and New York run the whole thing, because that's not fair to...
Do you hear any of those kinds of proposals that are, not clean sweeps coming from the Democrats or Biden campaign?
What do you mean?
Well, you're saying something needs to be done, but not necessarily get rid of the Electoral College, come up with something else. But I wonder if you've heard of any of those kinds of proposals coming from the candidate that you're going to vote for.
I've heard a lot of Democrats say sweep the system because, over the past 20 years, it's happened twice now. That's 12 years worth of presidency that they've lost and won the popular vote. So I've heard them say scrap the Electoral College, and I've heard Republicans say keep it. But I mean, they're so disproportionately represented, especially in the Senate, because they represent like 30 million less people with the same amount of seats, and that's a big problem. But it's also fair to the people that live there that don't get the same amount of representation.
Right. A state like Washington, is a microcosm of that problem where we have, essentially, decisions for, and it. But I guess my question was like, do you see Democrats offering up a compromise solution to the Electoral College? No.
No, I don't see any compromise between either side.
Right.
So,
Yes. All right. Well, cool. That was great.
all right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before you go, if you don't mind, giving me a contact, whether it be an email or what have you, and so when I get these together and get them up and running, I can let you know.
Okay with the phone number?
And yeah, whatever you like. I feel like it's valuable for people to talk face to face.
I think the whole devil's advocate thing is good too. Like, even on some really bad issues, seeing the other side. If you can't see the other side, then you won't be able to understand your side.
Totally.
So
Absolutely. Yeah. And did you feel like I kept? I mean, do you have a sense of what my side is?
no, I think you're just really well thought out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Appreciate you stopping.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That was
thank
a
you.
Good conversation.
Right on. I agree. Take care.
You too.